Welcome to the lesson number 7 on learning Fusion on DaVinci Resolve. Today we are going to take a step further from the previous lesson number 6, where we talked a little bit about the credit roll, and we are going to use the Text Plus tool again, but we're going to go a little bit more in detail and explore a little bit of keyframes, animations, and a little bit of how you can basically just take a step further, really. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is actually open the effects panel here and bring in the Text Plus here into our edit page. Okay, and if we scroll here, we can see that we have a custom title. Okay, so we can change that right away to full name here. Okay, that's the first thing we're gonna do. Okay, full name, great. And then the next thing we're gonna do is to change the font here from semi-bold to extra bold. Okay, and then change the size to about 0.1. Press enter. Great. So now once we have that, one final thing in the text tab here, we want to change our H anchor point here to, see, now it's like center justified. We want to change it to left justified. Okay, once we do that, the text is looking much better now. Okay, great. Once we do that, let's change it to let's go to our layout tab here, and on our layout on our center X, let's position the text on the left here, and then down to be a lower third text. Okay, just as you can see here. Perfect. So now we get something that looks much better. Okay, next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go on our shading tab here, and we are going to change on our properties the type from solid to a gradient. Okay, and that adds a little bit more dimension into our text here. So first thing I'm gonna do, it's like on this I'm going to change the color to probably an icy blue kind of color, so you can have something like this, I would say. About, it could be, okay, like that. And then I'm going to click on this other rectangle here, and I'm actually going to keep that to white. And I'm going to add another point. You can see that plus button once I hover over the text tool here, and by sliding you can see the name there has kind of, I kind of like it there. Okay, perfect. So okay, so now that we did that, I am going to scroll down here on our mapping angle. I'm gonna go with -90. Okay, and then change the mapping level from character to line. Okay, so we have almost this gradient. It's white, but it's almost going towards this icy bluish color. Okay, and it serves my purpose for now. Okay, so I like this. Okay, so once, just to repeat, we went on our text, wrote the name here, changed the font a little bit to extra bold, changed a little bit the size, then left justified the title here. Then we went to our layout tab, where we changed our positioning of the text. Then on our shading, we finally did add a gradient on our type, and then added an icy blue color on our left, and kept the white on our right, and then added another point towards the middle right. Okay, and then we changed our mapping angle to -90 and our mapping level to line, from character to line. Okay, once we do that, now we can get into our Fusion. Okay, by just you don't need to hold or press anything. You can just click on the Fusion tab here, and it automatically updates whatever we had. In case you want to make changes, you can, the changes you made on the edit tab, you can also change them here on the Fusion tab. So for instance, let's say on my full name here, which is this template here, we want to kind of change the color here. I can just click on it, and let's say I want to go for something okay, it's a little extreme, but something a little bit less white, towards the blue here. It's a little extreme, but like something like that, and then move this around a little bit. You always have this these options as well, just so that you're aware, okay, of that. Okay, perfect. Now that we've done that, next thing I'm going to do is actually add a merge node here, and I'm gonna take my template, which is my old template, the one that I had before. It's this one, and it's into our merges input on our background here. So let's rename that real quick. First things first. So let's call this name, okay? Not very creative, but you know, that's what it is, and that's what we're using it for. And then our template here, okay, that we just duplicated, it's set on our foreground, on our merges foreground. So I'm going to change this to title. And once you do that, you see that now in the text box here, we have some sort of, it's kind of messy. I'm going to change that also, the font to thin, okay, and to light, I'm sorry. And then next thing I'm going to do is, you can also change the colors just the way we're doing it for our name. We can do that as well here in our shading. So if we want to change the gradient, etc., we can do that by going back to our shading. Okay, we have the same properties we had in the edit page. Perfect. So next thing is to let's view our merge to node, but I also want to move the text, right? I want to move the title just underneath our full name here. So to do that, I'm going to go on my layout here, and then I am going to move the Y down, okay, to about here. Perfect. So now I'm going to click out. We have something like that. Okay, perfect. So that's about it for you know, positioning text, etc. It's a very simple template, so I just want to keep it simple. One last thing you might want to do is to actually rename the title here, the template, to title. Okay, so we have a clear distinction between each node. Okay, and renaming them is really important. So call it title. Okay, perfect. So now next thing I'm going to do is add a banner to this, okay, just to add some visual interest. So I'm going to go here on my background, remember, and this is a color generator basically. We use this on tutorial number 3 when we did our sky replacement. But so I'm going to take the background, and when I load it, you can see it's just black here, and it's a solid color. We can change this to a gradient as well, just the way we did for our text tool. And then from linear here, we're going to go to radial, okay? Once we go to radial, we can change a little bit the colors and play a little bit with the pattern of the colors. So I'm going to go with a kind of like a blue, icy blue tone here, okay? And then for our white, something more like, let's go for something like that. Actually, let me make it darker. I just want to go for something much darker, something of like that. Just make something really dark, just to show you what the power of the gradients. You know, I'll go for a really dark kind of mood, actually, just as a whole. Okay, so something like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is, now that we have our background, we're going to add matte. Okay, we're familiar with all these mattes. The only one I think we haven't used so far is the rectangle. So when you add a matte, it automatically adds it into the effect mask here, and you can only see what's inside the matte. So by adding that, basically, we can see the gradient that we created. Okay, so now and that's perfect. So before I do anything else on my background here, let me rename this so we keep organized, and I'm going to call it banner. Here. And on my rectangle now, let's fill up the frame on, so with our width, let's go all the way up to 1 here. Perfect. And you can see that now it's, you know, it's all across. And then I am going to reduce a little bit the height to about 0.3. Okay, so that's doing it for us. All right, perfect. Now that we have this, let's move our nodes like right underneath, so I keep it a little bit organized. I'm going to keep the rectangle here on the side, and then the banner here. Now I'm going to connect the output of my merge one to my banner node I just created, and I can load my merge 2. Now we can see we have the banner and the text as well. Okay, so really good. Really good. So now next thing I'm going to do is take the rectangle here, and on its center Y, I'm going to take it down so I can fit the text right in the banner. Okay, so now we have something like that, which looks much better. One last thing I want to do, I'm going to move my media out here, take my merge 2 output, connect to the input of media 1, so we connect it directly to the media out. Okay, perfect. Now let's get these things a little bit closer. just because I like to keep things organized here. Okay, and perfect. So we did all of this with a few nodes. Okay, next thing we want to do is actually to, if I play the clip, you can see that nothing is really animating, and we need to animate a little bit. Okay, and in order to do that, first thing I'm going to do is click on title here and add a another rectangle tool. When I say tool and node, I mean the same thing, by the way. So rectangle tool, I am going to change a little bit the position. So on the center Y, take this down to about here, right on the edge. And then remember that once you add a rectangle, we only see what's inside of it. So we don't see our title here because it's outside of it. So once I adjust the width here to about 1, then that's going to show. So you can see that here. Okay, so you see what I'm talking about. So now now let's animate the actual title text into our inside of our rectangle tool, rectangle mat here. So I'm gonna go here on title, and then go to layout, and then I am going to add a keyframe on our center here, and I'm going to move my Y. So I'm going to get my, see, look at the viewer, you see the title there. I'm going to move it out up to the point where you don't see it, right? And then I am going to go on my frame 15 about here, and then let's just bring it down to about here. And once I do that, look what happens. Once we play it, now it's animated. It animated the title. Okay, this is a very simple animation, yet effective. Okay, and we did that just with two with a simple mat, rectangle mat, and a few keyframes. Okay, now there is something also very powerful within Fusion, and it's a modifier, and that's the follower. So how do you use that? Now I'm going to animate my full name here. So I'm going to go on name, and I'm going to right click here, and once I right click, you can see this modifier here called follower, right? I click on it, and now you see nothing happens. That's because, as you guys learned in the previous videos, every modifier's tab, it's accessible here. So once I click on modifier, we can see a bunch of parameters here: timing, text, transform, shading, settings, etc. First thing I'm going to do now is to go on my transform here, and I'm going to go on my rotation, add a keyframe, and change my Y rotation to about -100. Look what happens to the text, right? So we want to animate this text. So next thing I'm going to do actually is to move the playhead to frame 15, okay, and change the Y rotation again to bring it back to 0. Okay, so once I do that, what's happening really is that our text now, let me create a quick render range to about here. Okay, so from here to about here. Okay, so you could see that. All right, so we animated our full name. What I want to do next actually is to, when we go back to our name here, go back to our modifier, and on our transform, actually I'm going to, here on timing, I'm going to change the delay to 2, about 2 frames. Okay, and that, see, it adds those 2 frames on each letter. Okay, so perfect. So now that we did this, I noticed one problem though. Once I'm in the beginning of the comp, I see that I would like to start it with no, like, the opacity, it's still a little bit on. We see the text before the animation starts, and we don't want that. We want it to be completely invisible, and then it comes in. In order to do that, I am going back to my name here, modifiers, and then I am going to go on my shading here. Make sure you're on the beginning of your comp, right? Then the opacity here, we are going to add a keyframe and take it to 0. And as you can see, we have no text here. Then we're going to go back to our frame 15, and we take our opacity back to 1. And now that we've done that, once we play our clip, our text, motion graphics, you can see that it's more a gradual, okay? And yes, looks much better. Okay, perfect. Running about the 15-minute range, so let's get going. Next thing I'm going to do is to go on my keyframes here and close our nodes here. So once you first open this, probably for you it's going to look something like this. Let me show you. It's going to look something like this, and you want to figure out what's going on here. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like for you once you open it. First thing you're going to do is click on this zoom to fit. It's going to fit all the different these are all the nodes, by the way. These are all the nodes we have in our node editor here on the left, and you can see them represented here visually, okay, frame by frame, all the different frames. The vertical things here, these are our keyframes, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is to you don't want all of this. We want to see only the nodes that are animated. So I'm going to go here on this double arrow filter here, click on it, and then click on animated. So now this shows you only the two nodes that we really added some animation to, so which is name and title. Okay, so now let's take name here, and I want to move those keyframes by 5 frames back. So we're on frame 15, remember, because we're adding those at frame 15. You can see it here. But let's say we want to take it to frame 20 over here. We can drag a rectangle tool around them, rectangle selection, sorry, and then drag them to the playhead to about frame 20. And now we can play the clip, okay, and we extended that, all right? Alternatively, there's another way to move things, okay, and rather than dragging here on the keyframe, I'm gonna go do this, show you this on title. So let's select title here, and on the displacement here, path 1 displacement, let me do another rectangular selection here, okay, and you can see they're both yellow, the keyframes. It means they've selected both of them, and instead of just dragging them, I want to move them, let's say 10 frames forward or back, but in this case I'm going to move them forward, right? So you can either drag those just the way I showed you before. Another way is to go here on this box here. Instead of time, we're going to go on T offset, and then you add just the frames you want to offset it by. So in this case I want to go 10 frames forward, so I press 10, okay? I don't know if you can see it here, it's a little white. Press OK, and then you see that it moved those, okay? It went 10 frames forward now. We explored the spline editor, which is a very, very powerful when you do an interpolation between keyframes. But that is also that say you want to do something simple like adding a smooth to a specific keyframe or any sort of to any other keyframe. You can do that easily here as well by just right-clicking on it, let's say on this keyframe here, and just add a smooth. We can do it directly from here. Now, it's not as good as doing it on spline editor, but you also have the option, okay? So let's close our keyframes here, and let's go back to our nodes, okay? So now, perfect. So we did quite a few things here, okay? And the next thing I'm going to talk about, okay, is versions, okay? So what are versions? And basically, if I go on my banner here, and let's say it happened that you made this blue, but you don't like it blue, you want it to be green, but you're not sure if green is good and go back to blue. Rather than doing Command Z, Command Shift Z, going back and forth, there is something on the nodes called versions, okay? So which is up here. So you click on it, versions, and you can see you have version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, pay attention to this. What version allows you to do, it's basically allows you to do different versions on, let's say this banner, I want to change the color to green, red, blue, whatever else I want to do. You can do different versions for that node specifically, not the timeline, not the whole clips, etc., just for that node. So this is blue. Now let's say I want to go on node, I'm going to go on version 2, click on it, and now I want to make it mint green. I change the color, right? I'm going to change also the blue here and take it to a green, kind of something like that, okay? Now you made it this color, right? You can, so that's very bright, something like that, let's say, you know. Okay, so great. So you like this now, right? So you have this version on this node. So I click out, I click back in, but you want to go back to blue. I click back on 1. We have that version, blue version. Then version 2. Remember, this is just for the node, the specific node, whichever changes you're doing to that specific node. You can do up to 6 versions. Okay, so I'm gonna keep the green one. Kind of, it's kind of cool, right? So, but the question might arise where you're like, what if I need to do it for a whole timeline? I want to do different versions of the whole comp, you know, not just one specific node. Well, to do that, you can do that. So basically, to do that, I'm going to, I don't know if I like, 1 second, better the green or blue. Huh, it's a good question. Well, I'm gonna keep the blue just because we've been working on that. So how do we do versions for the timeline, okay, for the entire comp? So I'm gonna go here on clips. On clips, you can see your selected timeline, okay, and I have 4 clips in it. I have this man here, and then I have these text fusion composition we created. Then we have this other clip, and then the credit roll we did on the previous episode here. So now if I go here on this one, by the way, this is red because this is the selected, okay, clip from our timeline. If I right click on it and I click here on create new composition, okay, it creates a new composition. So what this means is that whatever changes you make now to this comp, okay, it's a different composition from what you had up to now. So this, we had only 1 composition before, which was comp 1. This is now comp 2. We can double check that by right clicking here and seeing composition 1, which is what we had up to now. I can reload that back, but now this is composition 2. Let's say this is a different version. I want to make other type of changes, so I can close that. And now on this composition, I can start making a few changes. So let me click here on merge 2 and add a hotspot. Okay, a hotspot. Let me go to frame 30. Let me move the hotspot now to about here, and let's tweak a few parameters just to show you what we can do. So I can change the primary strength here, like something like that, and then the size, strength, size, do something like that, and then the aspect, let's take it all the way up, so it's a little more, I can make it like something like that. Okay, great. So we added this hotspot on it. Perfect. So as I said, primary strength, hotspot, size here, and a little bit of the aspect. Took it all the way. We can change the color as well by unchecking red, mix, green, alpha. Let's make this yellow. So add a point here and just drag it down. Not this yellow like that, but just a little bit. Okay, to about here. Perfect. So, and that's how we change also the color a little bit. And the next thing I'm going to do is like actually go here on radial and add a radial on. Okay, and then I am going to radial repeat, take it all the way out, and then let's lower here the length and density by taking this to about half here. Okay, and perfect. So you know, we just made a few quick changes. Now let me show you. Now I made those changes because I want to show you what when I was talking about timeline compositions and versions, what that means. If I go back on my clips, remember I right click before I said create new composition. I had only 1 composition, but once I did that, I created a new composition, added the second one, which is the one that we just worked on. If I go back to the one I was working on just a few minutes before I started adding the hotspots, so composition 1, and I say load, takes me back to what we had before, you see. But if I right click again in composition 2 and I load this, it's what we just added now. Okay, and that's how powerful Fusion is and what you can do. Okay, so let me take you back to load to the first one. Okay, and one final thing you might want to do is to save this template. You know, you've been putting so much work and working so hard to make this happen. So how do you save it? Well, what you want to do, let's click out here and select the name, okay? Then Command select title, then Command A to select everything. The order you select things, that's the order is going to appear on your template. So now I can right click on any one of the nodes here, right click, then you go in macro, create macro, and that's how you create a template. So first thing, macro name, you can call this, let's say 2D training, 2D training, I don't know, 2D training, let's just call it like that. And perfect. So now those same things you selected here, such as name, title, all the different things, all the different nodes, all of them are here. But the only things that you might want to change in your template are really the full name and the title, right? And because like this seems a little bit too complicated, like what's happening here. So if I close my here, if I close my image here, I can see my text, right? So that's what I care about, stylized text. I can check that, and then right here the subject name, okay? I can write here subject name, okay? And add that, and that's added. Perfect. So now I can close the name, and the next thing I want to do is the title. Remember, because we had name here, and then we had title. So I can open the title here, and the same thing we did. Close that, and then we see here the stylized text. Click on it, and I can say, this is our title. Just so there is not the same, I can say job description, or not job description, because that's a job title. So job title, okay? But make sure to check those things. And then once you've selected all the things you need, you can just go and say here on close, right? And then save changes to micro tool. You can say yes, and then you can select the destination, okay? In this case, I'm not gonna do it because I've done it before, but that's how you create also a template inside of DaVinci Fusion, DaVinci Resolve Fusion. Inside of Fusion, okay? And okay, so that's great. Thank you so much for watching. On the next lesson, we are going to go more in depth, not just on motion graphics with text, but also a little bit more in detail with animating and keyframing specific things. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.